first time Haruto saw her, the world seemed to fold into silence. The classroom buzzed with voices, chairs scraped against the floor, the usual chaos of a Japanese high school at the end of spring semester. But for him, everything froze. A girl with long black hair that caught the sunlight like silk stood at the window, her uniform perfectly pressed, her eyes focused outside, as if she were waiting for something only she could see. That was Aya. And from that moment, Haruto's life would never return to the ordinary. Before we dive into this story of love, betrayal, heartbreak, and reconciliation, make sure to like this video and subscribe, because what happens between Haruto and Aya will take your breath away. The air in class smelled faintly of chalk and warm dust, the kind that clung to the back of your throat. Haruto shifted in his seat, pretending to read through his math notes, but his attention kept drifting to the girl by the window. Aya hadn't spoken to anyone since she transferred last week. She carried herself with a kind of quiet that wasn't shyness, but strength, like she didn't need anyone to notice her. At lunch, Haruto found himself heading to the rooftop, a place where he could escape the noise. To his surprise, she was already there, leaning against the railing, the wind pulling strands of her hair across her face. For a second, he considered turning back, but her eyes lifted and locked onto his. "You come here too?" she asked softly. Her voice startled him, not because it was loud, but because it was gentle, unguarded. He nodded. "It's quiet, easier to think." Aya smiled faintly, not at him, but at the open sky. "That's why I like it." They didn't speak much after that, but something settled between them. A thread so thin, it could break with a whisper, yet strong enough to pull them back the next day, and the next. Soon it became routine. Haruto would bring 2 cans of iced coffee from the vending machine, leaving one on the railing beside her without a word. Aya would accept it with the smallest nod, as though she'd been waiting for it all along. But high school had a way of magnifying everything, every glance, every silence, every unspoken word. Friends noticed. Rumors began to stir. Whispers trailed them through hallways. Some boys teased Haruto. Others threw knowing smirks at Aya. She ignored them, but he felt his chest tighten with every laugh behind his back. One afternoon, after club activities ended, Haruto saw her by the shoe lockers. She was surrounded by 3 girls from another class, their expressions sharp with mockery. "So, you're the new girl stealing our Haruto?" one of them sneered. Aya didn't flinch. She simply closed her locker, slipped on her shoes, and answered, "If Haruto belongs to anyone, it's himself." Her tone was steady, but Haruto noticed her fingers trembling as she tied her laces. That night, lying in his futon, Haruto couldn't shake the image of her standing there, calm but fragile. Something inside him shifted, an instinct to protect her, though she hadn't asked for it. The next morning, as they walked side by side toward class, Aya finally turned to him. "People don't like it when you get close to me. You should stay away." Her words cut sharper than she knew, but Haruto only shook his head. "I don't care what they say." Aya studied him, her eyes searching for a crack in his resolve. When she found none, she whispered, "Then don't regret it later." He didn't know yet what she meant, but he would. The rainy season had crept into Tokyo, and with it came afternoons, where the hallways smelled of wet shoes and umbrellas leaned like tired soldiers against the walls. Haruto found himself waiting for Aya almost every day after class. Though he tried not to make it obvious, sometimes they walked together, sometimes not. But every time their shoulders brushed in the crowd, it felt like something unspoken was growing between them. On the rooftop, the air was heavier now, thick with the scent of wet concrete. Aya sipped her coffee, her hair damp at the edges. "You know," she said quietly, "back at my old school, I never had this. A place that feels Mine. Haruto glanced at her. Were you alone there too? She tilted her head, considering. Not alone. Just invisible. People see what they want to see. They don't want complicated. He wanted to ask what she meant, but her eyes had that faraway look again, so he stayed silent. Instead, he placed his can beside hers, a small gesture that made her lips twitch into a smile. That night, Haruto lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in lazy circles. Invisible, complicated. Her words lingered in his chest. He wanted to know everything about her, why she transferred, what made her retreat into silence, why her smile seemed both real and breakable at once. The next day, Aya surprised him. She waited by the school gate, an umbrella in her hand. "You'll get soaked," she said simply, holding it out. He took it, stunned. They walked together under the narrow canopy, close enough that their sleeves brushed. He could feel the heat of her hand, even though it wasn't touching his. Halfway home, she stopped in front of a bookstore. "I like this place," she murmured. "Do you read?" "Sometimes," he admitted. Aya led him inside. The smell of paper and ink wrapped around them like another world. She pulled a book from the shelf, a thin volume of poems, and pressed it into his hands. "This one. Read it, then tell me which page feels like you." It was such an Aya thing to say. Strange, sudden, but with a weight he couldn't ignore. Later, as he flipped through the pages in his room, one verse caught him. "Even in storms, some flowers bend but don't break." He thought of her. He thought of himself, standing beside her when whispers tried to cut her down. He marked the page. When he returned the book the next day, he opened it to show her. Aya's eyes softened, and for the first time, she didn't just smile. She laughed. A small, surprised laugh that slipped past her guard. It echoed in his chest long after she stopped. But not everyone was happy. At lunch, Haruto's childhood friend, Yumi, cornered him in the hallway. "You're spending a lot of time with her," she said sharply. "Do you even know what kind of girl Aya is?" Haruto frowned. "What are you talking about?" "She left her old school for a reason. People say she—" Yumi hesitated, her eyes flicking with something between jealousy and warning. "Just be careful, Haruto. She's not who you think." The words stung, but he refused to let them take root. That evening, Aya was waiting on the rooftop, as if she'd known he needed to see her. The wind tangled her hair, and she looked at him with quiet intensity. "Why are you really here, Haruto?" she asked. "With me, when it's easier not to be." He swallowed hard. The truth pressed against his chest, raw and undeniable. "Because I don't want to be anywhere else." Aya's breath caught, but she turned away before he could see her full reaction. "Then don't let go," she whispered. Haruto didn't understand how fragile that promise was, or how quickly it would be tested. By mid-June, the warmth of summer had begun to creep into the classrooms, and the air conditioners buzzed weakly against the heat. Aya and Haruto still met on the rooftop, still shared the quiet moments that belonged only to them. But something had shifted, an undercurrent of tension that neither dared to name. It began with small things. Aya laughing at a message on her phone during lunch. Haruto noticing a boy from the soccer team walking with her after class. Nothing significant, nothing he could prove, but each moment carved at him like a slow knife. One afternoon, Haruto reached the rooftop earlier than usual. Aya wasn't there. He leaned against the railing, waiting, his fingers drumming against the can of coffee sweating in his palm. 10 minutes passed. 15. When the door finally opened, Aya stepped through, smiling faintly at something still glowing on her phone screen. "You're late," Haruto said, sharper than he intended. She blinked, surprised. I was helping with class duties. Sorry. His eyes flicked to the phone before he could stop himself. With who? That guy from soccer. Her expression hardened instantly. Does it matter? The words landed like a slap. For a moment, neither spoke. The hum of the city below filled the silence between them. I just thought, Haruto began, but his voice faltered. Aya closed her phone with a snap. You thought what? That I'm not allowed to talk to anyone else? That you own me? The bitterness in her tone stunned him. No, that's not what I... Then what, Haruto? Aya's voice trembled, not with anger, but with something closer to hurt. You said you didn't care about what people said, but now you're no different. You're listening to them. He wanted to protest, to explain that it wasn't about rumors or jealousy, but about the fear of losing her before he even had her. But the words twisted inside him, coming out wrong. Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't know who you really are. Aya froze. Her lips parted slightly, as if she'd been struck speechless. For a heartbeat, her eyes glistened, not with tears, but with disbelief. Then she turned, walking to the door with measured steps. Just before leaving, she whispered, If you can't trust me, then maybe you shouldn't be here at all. The door slammed behind her. Haruto stood alone, the can of coffee still unopened, his chest burning with regret he couldn't swallow down. He knew he had hurt her, but pride chained his tongue. For the next few days, Aya avoided him. On the rooftop, the space they had claimed as theirs was empty. In the hallways, her gaze slid past him as if he were invisible. He wanted to reach out, to apologize, but every time he tried, his throat closed. Then came the blow that shattered his silence. Haruto walked into the courtyard one afternoon and froze. Aya was there, standing beside the soccer boy, her head tilted as she listened to him speak. And then she laughed, the same light, unguarded laugh she had once given only to Haruto. Something in him cracked. That night, staring at the poem she had lent him, his eyes lingered on the words he once thought described her. Even in storms, some flowers bend but don't break. Now he wasn't sure if he had misread everything, or if he had been the storm all along. The summer festival lit up the town, with lanterns strung across the streets, fireworks bursting like flowers in the night sky, and the smell of grilled yakitori drifting through the air. Haruto should have been happy. It was the night he had promised Aya they would go together. But when he arrived at the shrine steps, heart racing, Aya was already there. And she wasn't alone. The soccer boy stood beside her, holding a paper fan. Oh! Aya wore a light blue yukata, her hair tied up with a ribbon. She looked radiant, but all Haruto could see was the distance between them, the way she leaned slightly closer to someone else. Aya, Haruto called, his voice rough. She turned, her smile faltering. Haruto, you came. Of course I came. His eyes flicked to the boy. Why is he here? Aya's brows knit. He just walked me from the station. That's all? That's all? Haruto's voice rose, sharp enough that a few festival goers turned their heads. You disappear for days, ignore me in school, and then I find you with him. And I'm supposed to believe it's nothing? The boy shifted uncomfortably, mumbling, Maybe I should stay out of this. Haruto snapped. Aya's eyes widened, anger flashing for the first time. Don't talk to him like that. He's done nothing wrong. Haruto's chest tightened, heat rushing to his face. You're defending him? What about me, Aya? What about us? Her lips pressed into a thin line, her voice trembling with restrained fury. Us? Haruto, you don't even trust me. Every time I talk to someone else, you look at me like I've betrayed you. Do you even know how suffocating that feels? He froze. Her words pierced deeper than any rumor ever could. Aya continued, her tone breaking. I thought you were different. I thought you saw me for who I am. Not for what people whisper, not for what they expect. But you're just like the rest. You don't believe in me. The fireworks above cracked open the night sky, drowning out the crowd's murmurs. Haruto's heart pounded, torn between pride and desperation. He reached for her wrist, but she pulled away. Aya, no. Her voice was final, steady despite the tears welling in her eyes. If you can't trust me, then I can't do this anymore. The words hit harder than any blow. She turned and walked away, her yukata brushing against the lantern-lit steps, the boy following at a distance. Haruto stood frozen, fireworks exploding above him, their light mocking the darkness spreading inside his chest. Later that night, he found himself back on the rooftop, alone. The coffee can in his hand was warm, untouched. He hurled it against the railing, the sharp clang echoing into the empty schoolyard. For the first time since he had met her, the silence didn't feel comforting. It felt unbearable. Aya was gone. And this time, he feared she wouldn't return. The days after the festival blurred into one another. The classrooms buzzed as always. The rooftop still smelled of sun-warmed concrete. But without Aya, everything felt hollow. Haruto kept catching himself glancing toward the door, waiting for her to walk in, with her quiet smile. She never did. At first, he told himself it was fine. He buried himself in soccer practice, in homework, in meaningless conversations with classmates. But every night, when he lay staring at the ceiling, the silence pressed down on him. He replayed the festival again and again. His words, her tears, the way her wrist slipped from his hand. Regret gnawed at him like a slow fire. One evening, he wandered through the streets aimlessly and found himself outside the bookstore Aya had once taken him to. The window display had changed, but he could still see the section where she'd pulled out that thin book of poems. His chest tightened. Inside, he bought a copy for himself. He told the clerk it was for a school project, but the truth weighed heavier. He wanted a piece of her, even if only through words. Meanwhile, Aya drifted through her days like a shadow. She avoided the rooftop, avoided Haruto's eyes in the hallway. To her friends, she seemed unchanged, studious, polite, reserved. But at night, she sat by her window, listening to the cicadas and wondering if she had done the right thing. Her chest ached with the memory of his voice, raw with anger and fear. She pressed her forehead against the glass, whispering to herself, "Why couldn't he trust me?" Her phone buzzed with messages from classmates, even from the soccer boy. But she ignored them. None of it mattered. Haruto's absence was the only presence she felt. As weeks passed, whispers spread through the school. Some said they'd broken up, though no one knew for sure what they had been. Others said Aya had moved on. Haruto forced himself to ignore it all, but each rumor dug deeper into his guilt. One afternoon, he stayed late to clean the classroom. As he gathered books from the desks, his eyes fell on a folded piece of paper, tucked beneath a chair. He picked it up. Aya's handwriting, delicate and neat. It was a poem, copied from the very book she'd once given him. Even when shadows fall, a flower waits for light. Not broken, only hidden, until someone believes again. His throat tightened. The message was clear. Aya hadn't given up. Not entirely. She was waiting for something he hadn't been able to give her, trust. That night, Haruto stood on the rooftop, the poem clenched in his fist. The city lights shimmered below, the summer breeze warm against his face. For the first time in weeks, he let himself admit the truth. He had loved her all along, and if he didn't fight for her now, he would lose her forever. Down the street, Aya sat on her bed, staring at her phone. Her finger hovered over Haruto's contact, heart pounding. She wanted to hear his voice, to know if he felt even half of what she did. but fear held her back. At that exact moment, Haruto finally pressed call. Aya's screen lit up. Her breath caught. She answered. The line crackled for a moment, then settled into silence. Neither spoke at first, each waiting for the other to break the wall they had built between them. Finally, Haruto's voice came through, low and unsteady. "Aya, I'm sorry." Her breath hitched. She gripped the phone tighter. "Sorry for what?" "For everything. For not trusting you. For letting my fear turn into anger. I hurt you when all I wanted was to protect what we had. And I don't deserve another chance. But I'm asking for one anyway." There was a pause, filled with the faint hum of cicadas outside her window. Aya closed her eyes. The hurt was still there, raw and tender, but beneath it pulsed something stronger, something she had tried to bury. "You think sorry is enough?" Her voice trembled, but it wasn't cold. "Do you know what it felt like, Haruto? To believe in you, only for you to doubt me the moment people whispered. It broke something inside me." "I know," he whispered. "I know. And it kills me every day. But Aya, even broken things can be mended if we try." For the first time in weeks, Aya let out a shaky laugh. It wasn't joy, not yet, but relief, like finally breathing after being underwater too long. The next day, Haruto asked her to meet him on the rooftop. When she arrived, the late summer sun painted the sky orange, and the cicadas hummed their farewell songs. Haruto stood waiting, a book in his hand, the same volume of poems she had once given him. "I read it," he said simply, showing her the marked page. "Every line reminded me of you. And this one?" He read softly, voice catching. "Even in storms, some flowers bend but don't break." He looked up, eyes searching hers. "Aya, I don't want to be your storm. I want to be the light after it." Aya's chest tightened, her vision blurring. Slowly she stepped closer until their hands brushed. For a moment she hesitated, then laced her fingers through his. "You're an idiot," she whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. "But you're my idiot." Haruto laughed, the sound breaking like sunlight through clouds. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as if letting go would mean losing her forever. Aya rested her forehead against his shoulder, the weight she had carried finally lifting. Down below, the city carried on unaware. But for them, the rooftop was the whole world, a place where wounds could heal, where broken trust could be rebuilt, where love could begin again, fragile but real. When they finally pulled apart, Aya looked at him with a soft smile. "We still have exams. We still don't know where we'll be after graduation." Haruto nodded. "Then let's face it together. Whatever comes." The cicadas sang louder, the last light fading into night. And for the first time, both of them believed it. Love was worth the fight, no matter how many storms tried to break them.